Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Handford, and my wife, Dennae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. On the podcast with us today is David Mammano. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I am so happy to be here, Dan. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
We're looking forward to talking with you, and we'd like for you to get us started by just telling us a little bit about your background, where you've come from, and where your focus is right now as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been an entrepreneur since 1995. My first business, and it was my core business for about 18 years, was a printed magazine for teenagers. It was called Next Step Magazine, and then became Next Step U Magazine. And we would help teenagers with college, career, and life planning. We gave it out free to high school students nationwide in about 20,000 high schools, 5 times a year in bulk. And the way we made our money is we sold ads. So mostly colleges, banks, student loan companies, et cetera, armed services would advertise. And that's how we drove our revenue. We had 17 regional editions around the country. So obviously regional colleges could target their advertising. Beautiful business, had a great team of about 15 people. We were Inc. Magazine, a 5,000 company 3 years in a row. Rochester Top 100 company, really had it going on. And then, the entrepreneurial roller coaster kicked in, and around 2009, a whole series of events, obviously the recession, but more so the digital revolution really kicked in hard then, and finally just said, teens and print are no longer cutting edge technology. So we retired the print a few years later, put everything online, and never was the same. Really, as you can see with most magazines and newspapers these days, they're much smaller, not making as much revenue with their online, and it's just a different model. And so eventually we retired Next Step, sold off some parts, and I ended up a couple of years ago, started a new brand called Avanti, which means move forward in Next Step. And I thought it was kind of a nice symbiotic name with Next Step over the years, always kind of forward motion. And Avanti started with a coaching program. So I would coach people to start businesses and grow businesses. And then I started my own podcast, the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast. And then started doing events for entrepreneurs where I'd bring in a lot of great speakers and, obviously sponsors, attendees, all that great stuff. And then we, started creating these peer groups. So it's a confidential advisory board group that meets once a month, 8 to 12 people, and they share opportunities and challenges. It's, people know it as a mastermind advisory board group. We call it a peer group, the Avanti peer group. And it's just a place to go. Once a month, a small business entrepreneur can go and vet, challenges, opportunities, and really get feedback and experience sharing from other like-minded individuals. As you guys know, sometimes being an entrepreneur is very lonely. And, our tagline is don't go at it alone. Because even if you have 50 employees, sometimes you feel alone because they don't know what you're going through. I could watch football with my buddy and have a great time, beer, chicken wings. But when I go and ask him some advice about, personnel issues, he doesn't know what the heck to say. So this, this entrepreneurial network that we formed is really, I joke that and it's really not a joke. It's entrepreneur therapy, that once a month. And then now in Rochester, we now have 6 peer groups. And then every other month we do an all-member event with a speaker and kind of a learning event. And that's great. And now we've started to expand the Avanti Entrepreneur Network into different cities. So we have chapters in 8 other cities now, and it's going really well. Very, very exciting, time and opportunities for Avanti.
I like to start off with what I call the sore thumb tough decision, one that you made that didn't really have that good of an outcome, and maybe some of the lessons that you learned through that tough decision.
Oh my God, which one do I choose? So I'll choose the one that is still raw. So the Next Step U magazine, the print was declining, and I put everything online. I also was trying to kind of pivot the Next Step brand into some different models. So I started an online school called Next Step Academy, and that was an online school that had life skill courses, and that really didn't work out too well. But the biggest bomb when I was trying to pivot financially, I'll say, is I started a retail center. So it's called the Next Step U College Planning Center. And the idea was that it was going to be like a Sylvan Learning Center or a Huntington Learning Center, but we were going to be super hyper focused on the college planning experience, right? So almost like a guidance counselor on steroids. Really help them to find, naturally who they are through some assessments, and then, map that their natural God-given path to college majors, careers and colleges, right? And, did a lot of research actually. And everybody's like, oh, great idea. Our guidance counselor, isn't great. We would come, and it was only $950. I thought, hey, spend $950 for a decision that, with college, anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 a year in tuition. So helping you make that right choice. Well, so I, set up 5-year lease, built out a beautiful retail center right above the most popular Starbucks in Rochester. And I just thought, wow, I'm going to franchise this thing and it's going to be like the next big thing. And unfortunately, it bombed. It was like people just, were not coming in and bucking up the $950 like they said they would in the research. And so after about 2 years, I said, I got to retire this thing. Thank God I got out of my lease, bought out part of it. But, it was a big blow. It was a big blow in many ways. But, listen, the life of an entrepreneur, we eventually become unemployable, and you keep on thinking, what's next? What can I do next? What problem can I go solve? And that's when I thought of Avanti.
Well, I have so many questions about what happened there. So first thing I always ask you as far as a lesson learned there is when you were going through that startup phase of that business, and obviously it sounded like you did some research beforehand to kind of, test it or whatever before you jumped in. And that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs don't do. But as you started that business, at what point did you realize that it's not going to work?
Well, I started questioning it probably within, 4 to 6 months into it, saying like, wow, I'm not really getting the traffic, that I thought I would. I just thought like, wow, I'd be the next panacea for college and career planning. But, I said, all right, well, let's just work on some different things. So we came up with some different ideas, going into to schools and, doing college planning seminars, going into libraries, going into churches, doing college planning seminars, just trying to get out there to drum up business. And people love those. They'd come to the free stuff, but when it was time to buck up the $950, it's just, it was they're having a tough time. I think, they said, well, geez, $950. I do have a guidance counselor. Maybe I just need to utilize her or him more, and we'll just figure this out. So I would say, definitely 4 to 6 months, my radar went up, and then I just kept on trying, and eventually I had to concede and say, this is just not happening.
And I'm sure that was very, very hard, because I can understand, that sometimes as entrepreneurs, we have this great idea and we go and implement it, and we don't want people to think that it wasn't a good idea. And so we try to continue to sell ourselves. And there's other dynamics too, because you had this lease that you had as well. So you're like, even if I shut it down, I got to continue to pay this lease. And
right.
It kind of happens in your head. Do you feel like, looking back at it, that you probably should have shut it down sooner than 2 years?
I would say no. I would say I'm always, appreciating the journey. I learned a lot during those 2 years of what to do and what not to do. And I think part of being an entrepreneur is honoring your scars, right? And
Sure.
your injuries and learning from them. And, if that didn't happen, maybe I wouldn't be, have thought of the idea of Avanti, which now
Stepping stone for Avanti.
Oh my God, I'm loving it. I'm in my groove. This is like, I feel like, God put me on this earth to do this, and I'm the perfect person in the world to do it. And so it's all part of the journey. You just got to trust it, what happened before and what's to come.
So let's shift a little bit here and talk about a tough decision that you have had to make that had a really good and positive outcome, and some of those lessons.
Well, I think really what has helped me the most in comeback is helping others. Through the years, especially because I had a magazine for high school students, I would always have a lot of young adults contact me and ask me advice about starting a business. A lot of people wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I always did that. And frankly, that is where the idea from Avanti came from, because, Next Step was certainly, swirling down. And I'm in my car, and a 25-year-old, young man called me named Ben. And Ben said, hey, David Mammano, you met with me 5 years ago when I was graduating college. And, I just wanted to thank you. I took tons of notes. You gave me some great advice about starting a business. And now I'm doing it, and I'm doing really well. Look back at my notes, and frankly, a lot of things you told me are why I'm successful. So I just wanted to thank you. And I thought, how nice is that? And thanks for calling me. And then at the end, he goes, you should do this for a living. You should coach people to start businesses and grow businesses, because you're very inspiring and good at it. And it was the right time, right place, right message. And I just said, wow, I think that's what I want to do. Got back to the office, told Diana Fisher, my marketing director, and I said, hey, I think it's time to really move in a new direction. we're going to start a new website. And I, very creatively at that time called it davidmammano.com. So we started that, developed a coaching program, online courses, speaking, all that. And that's how Avanti was born, all from me, being willing to help out a young man, 5 years previously. So I think that's a big piece of my success, is always being there for others as well.
And I think, a lot of times as entrepreneurs, just getting out there and doing something is what sparks our ingenuity and our creativity to be able to think of new ways to be able to, start another business or a different type of entity, or even adding different, legs to an existing business or avenues of revenue. And, I think, like you said, that business that didn't go so well was that stepping stone for you. And I've had many of those myself, where we've had stepping stones that, we've tried to implement things into a business and it just didn't go well, but it was a stepping stone to the next thing. And, always trying to be able to be open and looking for that next thing is really what, entrepreneurship is.
Absolutely. 100%. Like, one of our core values with Avanti is, and I've said it a few times here, is trust the journey. Like, we can work hard, we can plan all we want, but at the end of the day, opportunities arise that you would have never planned, never thought of. We didn't even have our first peer group last year at this time. Our first peer group meeting for Avanti was in November last year. Now I have, like I said, 6 groups in Rochester. We're about to start a 7th. And then I've got, 7 other chapters started. If you asked me last year at this time, are you going to, is your model going to be leading with these Avanti peer group meetings? I would have said, what are you talking about? I don't even know what you mean. So that was less than a year ago, right? So you just, really just got to kind of quell the anxiety that many entrepreneurs have, quell the negative thoughts, and really trust the journey, work hard, and just be as inspirational and positive as you can be for others and for yourself.
So with these peer groups that you have, how is it structured as far as like, is it a pay for play? Are those kind of like an entry point to Avanti and some other things that you do inside of it from like a coaching perspective? How does that actually work?
No, we make it pretty simple. It's $1,000 per year, or you can do $99 a month. And for that, you get placed in a group. You could come to all of our events. We have member-only content written by some superstars like Jeffrey Gittimore, who's a Little Red Book of Selling, and Kevin Harrington, who used to be on Shark Tank, and Amy Anderson, former editor of Success Magazine. So we've got some great member-only content. And then next year, we're going to have a national event for all the chapters. So something like, Orlando, 3-day event with great speakers. So really for, $1,000 a year to join your local chapter, I think you get a lot of value. And then, a lot of these, it really, if you're familiar with like Vistage or EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, which by the way are fantastic, but you have to have certain revenue requirements to join, and Vistage is $15,000 a year. So if you're at that level, fantastic. We're more for the small business entrepreneur, So if you can't join a country club, join this really great club that has a lot of the same things for a lot less money.
So what are you looking for as far as, are you looking for people to help co-organize those things around the country? Or are you trying to keep them more close to your town and your area? Or what's your goal and your vision for those peer groups? And how can somebody maybe, help you create a larger network for you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're, typical entrepreneurial vision, global. We want these peer groups all over the world. My BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal is 10,000 groups in 10 years all over the world. So we're looking for people that want to start a chapter in their community. I mean, we certainly have a lot in the Northeast right now, but we're launching one in Seattle soon. So, and we're in New York, so obviously Seattle's pretty far away. So yeah, we're thinking, national, global. To find, the perfect person is somebody who maybe they're a business coach or consultant. Maybe they own a company like a digital marketing company, or they want to surround themselves with small to medium-sized business entrepreneurs, be their thought leader, be their resource, help them grow, and just, be a part of their community.
So, David, talk a little bit about the strategies that you use when you are faced with a difficult decision. And just from the few minutes that we've talked to you, you've obviously made a lot of hard choices. So what strategies do you implement to make those decisions?
Well, first and foremost, I pray. I really have to just, have some moments where I'm asking for help and guidance and once again, helping with that journey. I've surrounded myself with, I'll say, my own board of advisors, a mastermind alliance, and I rely on a lot of people that I will call and I will talk things through and get advice. So that helps out as well. Frankly, I work out. every morning, and when I'm stressed and anxious, I probably work out harder just to get the endorphins, beating up the stress hormones, right? And that helps out a lot as well. And then I'm always learning. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm always reading books. I'm always going to the seminars and networking and meeting people. I'm a big people person. I'm very transparent. I don't hide anything. I talk about my the good times and the bad times. I'm not perfect, and I want people to know that. And I've made some major mistakes, and I talk about them. And whenever I talk about them, I usually am helping somebody, or I'm getting more advice and learning something even more, which just fuels my fire and energy.
We are talking to David Mammano, and we're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our show sponsors. When we come back, we're going to ask David about some of his favorites as it relates to his life as an entrepreneur.
Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HanfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HanfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HanfordCapital.com. And we are back with David Mammano, and we're going to first talk to you about some technology, David, and a series of quick questions and answers that we call the trifecta. So start us off by telling us your favorite technology that you use in business that helps to make your life easier as an entrepreneur.
That is a great question. I'm really I got the new iPhone 10, iPhone X, whatever they call it. And I'm liking Siri right now, so I could say, hey, Siri, text Dan. Oh, hey, Siri, schedule this appointment. Hey, Siri, call yada, yada. And she just does it for me, right? So that's nice, right? In fact, when I have to make an appointment now, instead of going in my calendar and typing away, I just say, hey, Siri, schedule 10 a.m. Tuesday with Dan, and she puts it in my calendar. So love that. Love Zoom, which we're using right now. I use Zoom for a lot of meetings. I use Zoom for my podcast as well. And I use, when I have my meetings with Zoom, I will often use the video because I, of course, love seeing the people. So Zoom might be one of my favorites for sure. And then I use Infusionsoft. I think Infusionsoft, when used correctly, is an amazing piece of technology to help you, keep in touch with people, segment people. It's kind of finally someone's made a contact manager system for sales and marketing into one. And I think it's very, very helpful when it's very deep. There's a lot to learn. Some people call it Confusionsoft, but that's because they have so much to offer. So, but I have somebody who's an expert, and I'm not an expert. I just say, how do we do this? And, and so I have somebody running the day-to-day of Infusionsoft for me, but it's been very helpful as well.
What is a favorite quote that you've heard that's helped you as an entrepreneur?
I would say Winston Churchill, when you're walking through hell, don't stop. There's obviously, we go through some very tough times as an entrepreneur, and, we want to just at sometimes feel paralyzed and like, why is this happening? What just happened? And you got to remember, you will get through this. You will move on, keep on walking through, keep on moving forward. And that's Avanti, move forward. And, no matter how bad you feel about how bad it is, if you keep on working, moving forward, you will get through it and you will be back on top.
And what about a favorite book that you've read that you'd recommend?
My favorite book of all time is Endurance. It's, the story of Shackleton going to the Antarctic. I've read that many times. In fact, I'm listening to it again right now on Audible. And once again, it's just a great story of not giving up and moving forward.
I've read it in a couple of different settings, and the way that he was able to pull those people together and get them back to, some safety is pretty amazing.
He went back. I mean, he went back for everybody. So right. that guy in my mind is one of my massive all-time heroes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what's the next thing for you right now on your vision and your dream board? I know you've already talked a lot about what your visions are for Avanti, but what about you? What about you personally? And obviously you're well connected with Avanti.
Yeah, well, so in Rochester, New York, I have 72 members. I want to get that up to 100. So that's an immediate goal. Another immediate goal. So we have 8 chapters now with Avanti. I want to get that up to 100. So I'm focused on that every day. And personally, I am 196 pounds and I want to be 180. So I'm working on that.
That's awesome. That's great. And how can the listeners reach out to you if they want to follow you more, get some more information about Avanti and the like?
So very simple. They can email me, david@davidmammano.com. And Mammano is M as in Mary, Mammano. So david@davidmammano.com. They could go to our website, AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com. And they could call me, 585-317-8254.
And we'll make sure we put all that information as well as links and stuff like that in the show notes. And David, thank you so much. I love your energy, love your background, and look forward to continue to follow you and have you on a future episode as you continue to grow as an entrepreneur.
Well, thanks, guys. This was a true pleasure, and congratulations on what you're doing, and continue the good work.
Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.